Hey there folks! Tonight we're diving deep into the world of shipping lanes, geopolitical chess matches, and a whole lot of concrete because, believe it or not, there might be a new canal in town. That's right, Nicaragua, the land of volcanoes and vibrant culture, is making waves with a plan to build a massive waterway to rival the Panama Canal. Now you might be wondering, another canal? What's the big deal? Well, my friends, this isn't just some ditch we're talking about. This is a potential game changer for global trade, and you better believe the United States is paying attention. See, whoever controls the flow of goods controls a big chunk of the global economy. Think of it like controlling the world's largest water slide, except instead of screaming children, it's giant cargo ships filled with everything from sneakers to smartphones. And when we're talking about global trade these days, we have to talk about China. They're like that kid at the birthday party who's suddenly grown a foot taller and is eyeing your piece of cake. The US has been the big dog in the Western Hemisphere for a long time, but China's been making some power moves lately, and this canal has the potential to shake things up. The proposed Nicaraguan Canal, backed by Chinese investments, could drastically alter shipping routes, reducing transit times and costs for Chinese goods. This would not only enhance China's influence in global trade but also challenge the dominance of the Panama Canal, a critical asset for US economic interests. With China's Belt and Road Initiative aiming to create a vast network of trade routes, the Nicaraguan Canal could be a key piece in their grand strategy. This is why America is on high alert. The canal represents not just a shift in trade dynamics but a potential geopolitical power shift in favor of China. So buckle up because we're about to explore the wild world of canals, trade wars, and the quest for global domination, and trust me, it's way more interesting than it sounds. Alright, let's talk strategy. Imagine the world as a giant game of Risk, and those little pinch points where you can block your opponent's armies, those are basically canals in real life. They're like the ultimate shortcut for ships, saving time, fuel, and a whole lot of hassle. But here's the catch: control that shortcut, and you control a vital artery of the global economy. This is why canals are so strategically important. Now, the US has had a pretty good run with the Panama Canal. Since its opening in 1914, it has been a cornerstone of American maritime strategy, allowing the US Navy and commercial ships to move swiftly between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. It's been a key part of their global influence, like having a get-out-of-jail-free card in a game of Monopoly. But this Nicaraguan canal, that's like someone slipping China an extra set of dice. The proposed Nicaraguan Canal, backed by Chinese investments, could offer a new route for global shipping, suddenly giving China a significant strategic advantage. They'd have a new way to move their pieces around the board, and that makes things very interesting. For the US, this isn't just about shipping lanes, it's about maintaining their influence and control over global trade routes. This isn't just about shipping lanes, folks, it's about power. It's about who gets to call the shots in the 21st century. With China's growing economic clout and their ambitions to reshape global trade routes, a new canal in their back pocket could shift the balance of power in a big way. The US is understandably concerned about this potential shift, as it could undermine their long-standing maritime dominance and alter the dynamics of global trade. Okay, before we get too excited about giant construction projects and shifting global power, let's talk about the elephant in the room, or rather, the jaguars and sea turtles in the jungle. Because building a massive canal through one of the most biodiverse regions on the planet, that's kinda like giving a chainsaw to a toddler and saying, just trim the hedges, okay? See, Nicaragua is home to rainforests, wetlands, and a whole bunch of critters that don't really appreciate having their habitats sliced and diced. And let's not forget about the potential for pollution. We're talking about massive ships dredging up sediment and the ever-present risk of oil spills. It's a classic dilemma: progress versus preservation. On the one hand, a canal could bring jobs and economic development to Nicaragua, something they desperately need. But on the other hand, are we willing to risk turning a natural wonder into an environmental disaster? China's canal projects like the Nicaragua Canal have raised alarms among environmentalists. The potential for deforestation, habitat destruction, and pollution is immense. Meanwhile, the US is watching closely, weighing its own environmental policies and responses. The balance between economic growth and ecological preservation is more critical than ever. Tough questions, folks. Tough questions. To grasp why the US might be uneasy about a Chinese-backed canal in their backyard, we need to revisit a pivotal moment in history. Imagine this. It's 1823, and President James Monroe, the man with the iconic white hair, introduces the Monroe Doctrine. This doctrine essentially declared, Europe, stay out of Latin America. This is our sphere of influence. It was a bold statement, and it worked. For decades, the US maintained significant control in the region, often using military and economic power to safeguard its interests. Fast forward to today, and while the Monroe Doctrine might seem like a relic of the past, its influence persists. The US continues to view Latin America as its strategic backyard, and China's increasing presence there, it's causing significant concern. It's akin to discovering your neighbor has been secretly teaching your dog Mandarin. You're uncertain about their intentions, but it definitely raises an eyebrow. Section 5. The Dragon's Maritime Road, China's Belt and Road Initiative, and the Reshaping of Global Trade. Let's delve into China's ambitious Belt and Road Initiative, a colossal infrastructure project that aims to reshape global trade routes. This initiative, launched in 2013, seeks to create a vast network of trade routes connecting Asia, Europe, and Africa through land and maritime corridors. Think of it as the world's largest infrastructure project, encompassing roads, railways, ports, and even canals, all designed to enhance China's connectivity with the world. China promotes this initiative as a win-win cooperation, aiming to boost global trade and economic growth. However, critics argue that it's a strategic move by China to expand its geopolitical influence and create a new world order with Beijing at its center. And who can blame them? With trillions of dollars invested in infrastructure projects worldwide, China is undeniably gaining significant influence. The proposed Nicaraguan Canal is a prime example of this strategy. It provides China with a strategic foothold in the Western Hemisphere, strengthens their ties with Latin America, and gives them a powerful bargaining chip in their ongoing economic chess match with the US. The US fears that these canal projects could undermine its own influence in global trade and shift the balance of power towards China. Section 6. Two Canals, Two Futures, comparing the Panama Canal and Nicaragua's ambitious undertaking. So we've got two potential canals, both promising to change the face of global trade. But how do they stack up? Let's start with the reigning champ, the Panama Canal. It's been around for over a century, it's a marvel of engineering, and it's got a proven track record. But it's also getting a little long in the tooth. It's not as deep or wide as modern ships require, which means those giant container ships have to wait their turn or take a longer, more expensive route. Enter the challenger, the Nicaraguan Canal. It's bigger, it's badder, and it's designed to accommodate the supersized ships of the future. Plus it cuts through Nicaragua, which is closer to some major shipping routes, but it also comes with a hefty price tag, a whole host of environmental concerns, and the geopolitical baggage of China's involvement. It's a tough call, folks. It's like choosing between a reliable old car that needs constant repairs and a shiny new sports car that might bankrupt you with insurance premiums. Strategically, the Panama Canal has been a cornerstone for American naval and commercial interests. The Nicaraguan Canal, backed by China, could shift the balance of power in the region, impacting America's influence over global trade routes. Section 7. Engineering a megastructure, the technological and financial hurdles of canal construction. Building a canal isn't like digging a ditch in your backyard, folks. It's a monumental task that requires advanced technology and immense financial resources. We're talking about a massive feat of engineering involving blasting through mountains, dredging up millions of tons of earth, and building massive locks to raise and lower ships. These tasks demand cutting-edge machinery and precise planning. It's the kind of project that would make even the most ambitious pharaoh say, yeah, that's a lot of work. The scale and complexity are comparable to the construction of ancient wonders. And then there's the money. Financing such a colossal project is a challenge in itself. Building a canal like this would cost a staggering amount of cash, even for a country like China, with deep pockets. China's ambitious canal projects face financial scrutiny and require substantial investment. We're talking hundreds of billions of dollars, folks, enough to make your eyes water. The financial burden is immense, and securing funding is a major hurdle, and that's assuming everything goes according to plan, which, let's be honest, it never does. Unforeseen challenges and delays are almost guaranteed. There are also the logistical challenges. Coordinating such a large-scale project requires meticulous planning and execution. Where do you get all the materials? Sourcing the necessary raw materials is a significant challenge. How do you transport them? The logistics of moving materials to the construction site are complex and costly. And what about the thousands of workers needed to build this thing? Managing a large workforce adds another layer of complexity. It's a logistical nightmare, a symphony of concrete, steel, and manpower on a scale rarely seen before. From America's perspective, the technological and financial hurdles faced by China's canal projects are monumental, highlighting the challenges of such ambitious endeavors. Section 8. The American Gambit, navigating China's growing influence in America's backyard. So, what's the US to do about all this growing Chinese influence in their own hemisphere? They can't exactly build a wall around Central America, although knowing them, they've probably considered it. But they're not just going to sit back and watch China waltz in and build a canal on their doorstep. The strategic implications are too significant. One option is to play nice. They could try to cooperate with China, maybe even invest in the project themselves, albeit with some very strict conditions attached. This could ensure they have a say in the canal's operations and security. After all, there's no rule that says the US can't benefit from a new canal, even if it's Chinese-backed. Increased trade routes could be advantageous for American businesses. Another option is to get tough. They could slap sanctions on Nicaragua, pressure other countries to boycott the project, or even flex their military muscle in the region, reminding everyone who's still the big dog on the block. This approach, however, risks escalating tensions. Of course, there's always the diplomatic route, trying to persuade Latin American countries that cozying up to China might not be in their best interests. Highlighting the potential debt traps and loss of sovereignty could be key arguments. It's a delicate balancing act, folks, a game of geopolitical chess, where one wrong move could have major consequences. The US must weigh its options carefully to maintain influence in its own backyard. Section 9, A New World Order. The Nicaraguan Canal is a microcosm of shifting global power. So, what does it all mean? Well folks, the Nicaraguan Canal saga is more than just a story about a waterway. It's a microcosm of the shifting global power dynamics of the 21st century. It's about the rise of China, the waning influence of the US, and the struggle for control of the global economy. Whether the canal gets built or not remains to be seen, but one thing is clear. The world is changing and the old rules no longer apply. We're entering a new era, one where multiple power centers compete for influence and the outcome is far from certain. So buckle up folks, because the ride's about to get bumpy. And who knows, maybe in a few years we'll be back here talking about the grand opening of the Nicaragua Canal, with a Chinese flag flying high and a whole lot of nervous US diplomats sipping cocktails in the corner. The Nicaraguan Canal, if completed, would rival the Panama Canal, a symbol of American engineering prowess. China's involvement in this project signifies its ambition to reshape global trade routes. The US fears this canal could shift the balance of power, giving China a strategic foothold in the Americas. Moreover, it represents China's growing influence in Latin America, a region traditionally under US influence. The canal could facilitate faster and cheaper trade routes, boosting China's economic clout. This potential shift is why American policymakers are closely monitoring the situation. In essence, the Nicaraguan Canal is a battleground for economic supremacy in a rapidly changing world.